We all want to become more powerful, because power is what allows us to exert influence on the world around us to make it more how we know it ought to be. So today I want to talk to you about one of the great secrets of becoming more powerful. And it has to do with following the things within you that are absurd. Now, I find it important to reveal my sources, so I want to tell you that a lot of these ideas came from a conversation that I had with Zeus, the ancient Greek god of thunder. I don't normally talk to the gods, but about a year ago I was on the top of Mount Olympus in Greece, which is the home of the gods, and when you're on Zeus's throne and he starts talking to you, you just gotta listen. So here are some things I learned from Zeus about power. Within you, there are things that are absurd, aspects of you, components of your personality, ways that you understand or move through the world. And those things that are absurd are the places where you are different from how the world already is. For instance, probably nobody thinks it's absurd that you want to eat with a knife and fork, if in fact you do, because people ate with knives and forks before you got here, and that's how you learned you were supposed to do it. It's considered normal. But there are all kinds of things within you that are not so normal because they don't fit in with the way things were before you got here. Now, the reason this has to do with power is because if you want to make a contribution to the world that creates something new, something that doesn't already exist, if you want to figure out how to help improve and evolve the way that we do things, it's going to require that you honor the things in yourself that are different from the ways that we already do things, and those things are absurd. What are the things about you that have always been strange? Maybe they make you stand out in the world in a way that either has caused you to repress them or that you've been proud of but haven't figured out maybe how to fully express. What are the disturbances in you? Things that have been maybe too much for your family growing up, that maybe are even too much for you. What are the places where you don't quite know what to do with yourself because things don't make sense to you the way that they already are? These are the things within you that are absurd. Now, identifying those is part of the path to becoming powerful. But once you know what those strange and absurd and outrageous things are, those are just the seed. The goal is to figure out how to nurture that seed, to water it, to give it sunlight, to allow it to grow into maturity, to find out what form the mature version of your absurdity will take. You need to follow the absurd. Now, I want to give you a few examples of how I've done this in my own life because I am really absurd. And then we'll come back to you and talk about how you can take hold of the absurd things within you and allow them to develop. So, I have a pretty strange relationship with the wilderness, with love and sex, and with this strange thing that I call counseling. I'm going to tell you a little bit about each. So when I came into the world, I learned that there was civilization and there was wilderness, and these were two separate and distinct things. Human nature was not nature, but it never made sense to me. Things like boundaries around private property always seemed arbitrary and made up, like that's just the world too. And so I've always, for instance, filmed my video blogs out here in the urban wilderness because these are places that I think are expressive of the ways in which wilderness pervades everything. That we are creatures of the wild and we attempt to order it in the places where we live, but the ways we order it are not always so good for us and often distance us from our nature and from nature itself. So my relationship with the wilderness has been such that I go over all of the lines. I take people on urban wilderness adventures in places like this that people don't normally go, but that are beautiful and express something about our nature. I've always seen human beings as wild beings attempting to order ourselves in ways that don't always serve us best. And exploring that has allowed me to become the kind of counselor and person I am. I see this in particular in the areas of love and sexuality. When I was born into the world, people seemed just crazy about these things. It seemed like love and sex were abundantly available. They're free. Everybody wants them, and everybody's surrounded by people. So why does everybody seem so tormented about it? Why was it that nobody could seem to, or at least many people seem to not be able to get the love or keep the love that they needed or wanted for themselves, and that people lived their sexuality in some weird in-between zone where on one side it was repression and the other side was obsession? Well, I have tried to live in a way where I try to allow these things to become more freely available to people. Wherever I go, I try to teach people to fall in love with each other because it just seems like that's our nature. Love is the way we naturally feel about each other when there's not something in the way. And that there are equally ways for us to be sexual beings that are much freer. But we don't even know what those things are. For me to be somebody who moves through the world and has ways of relating to love and sex that don't fit with the ways they were when I got here has been challenging. It's scary. People are really tight about these things. They're very sure they know how it should be, even if they're not happy with the way that it is for them. And so being willing to stand out, to start to lead in the areas of love and sex has been an area where I've had to find my way step by step. But the most absurd thing about me is my relationship with this thing we call counseling. Counseling is magic. It's the kind of way you can relate to another human being where you figure out how to help them facilitate exactly the sort of change they specifically need to make their lives the way they want their lives to be. How to help people heal and grow and become free. This is something that I think anybody can learn to do pretty easily. But when I got here, when I came into the world, there were these existing professions and trades of psychiatry and psychotherapy that have very strong ideas about how people need to learn to be counselors that involve years of academic learning. I know many people in these professions who do a beautiful, extraordinary job of counseling despite their academic training. But I believe that academia is exactly the wrong place to learn to do these things, and that we need so many people to be counseling each other in order for us to evolve as a society, and that the structure that we have now that gets in so many people's way of being able to learn this is also in our way of evolving. And that's why I do the work that I do. That's why I've created Interchange. It's an attempt to grow into maturity, a way of offering people these skills and capacities that makes them accessible to everybody. And this is really my point. When you start off absurd, you're just strange. If you let yourself be absurd, you're just a nonconformist, maybe a rebel. And that's a good start. And I appreciate people who are strange just because they're strange, but it's not enough. Figuring out how to make the thing that is absurd in you accessible to people. Figuring out how to reach people and make what in you is strange into something that other people can gain access to and make use of for their own benefits, that allows people to do things differently. That's the process of growing the absurd into maturity. Unfortunately, it can never happen unless you first allow yourself to color yourself outside the lines, unless you first allow yourself to be the unique and strange individual that you are. It's honoring the absurd, honoring the too much, honoring the disturbances, honoring the unacceptable, honoring weirdness. That's where you've got to be able to begin. Following that process as it unfolds and becomes something that you never could have predicted when you first noticed how absurd you were is how you become powerful. And we need you to do this. I implore you to do this. Think about the places in you that are absurd that you have not allowed to be free, and help them become free, because that is what's going to allow us to be a society of people who are more empowered to make the world the way that we know it ought to be. And I look forward to doing it with you.